one thing that was done in the book is it's broken up into three major areas: thinking, doing, and being. So our panelists are actually going to focus on those areas. Thinking psychologically, doing science, and being involved today and into the future. And I had to throw in my own little caveat, it's not in the book, remembering and reconnecting. So you'll hear my little take on it. So without further ado, I want to introduce Stan Zuckerman, who's a well-known and well-respected psychoanalyst and therapist in Boise, who's going to share some thoughts. Stan, thank you.
One quick comment. If you'd like to watch this again, or his TED Talk, go to YouTube.
What's that? YouTube?
YouTube.
Yes, I didn't hear what you said.
You can see this if you go to YouTube,
okay.
and also a TED Talk that he does.
All right.
He's a very energetic guy to watch.
Okay.
And Stan, can you speak more loudly, please?
I can give it a try. The video we just watched does an excellent job of describing the various forms of denial as it relates to those who deny the scientific facts of climate change, and also shows us ways that we climate activists can engage climate deniers by sharing positive stories of climate greening. We can breach barriers with stories as simple as telling a neighbor how much money we've saved on our electric bill by installing solar panels. Or we might tell a friend how xeriscaping has saved us the time of not having to mow our yard. These stories, and many more like them, can and do create room for the possibility of a climate change swerve. Think of the cultural movements when slavery was abolished, or the success of the recent movement to support the LGBTQ rights community. In these cases, many years of steady and sometimes seemingly ineffective work led to a seismic cultural shift. Stories are an effective way of changing minds. Arguing facts with climate deniers is not effective. Sadly, climate change denial increases significantly as more scientific facts are presented. One encouraging story of greening is a shift in the religious world, where there is a change away from dominionism, the view that it is God's will that man exploits nature for his own purposes, to an ethics of stewardship, where humans are created by God as holy and placed on earth, which is also holy. For example, Pope Francis' encyclical, Laudato Si, states that human destruction of the planet is a sinful act, similar to idolatry. He says when we exploit creation, we are destroying the signs of God's love for us. So yes, thank goodness, there are many hopeful stories to tell. And yes, all climate activists need to share stories of the greening revolution. But now let me take you back to denial, a specific kind of denial that is exhibited by many people who do agree with climate scientists on the facts, but are overwhelmed, exhausted, and depressed by these same facts. It's a passive denial, a skepticism that leads to the belief that it is too late for climate activism to do any good, that we are in effect doomed. I'm very familiar with this kind of passive skepticism because it was a stance I lived until quite recently. Like many after the last presidential election, I felt emotionally flattened, shocked, and numb. Yes, I would join a protest march, but resisted the idea of actively working in an organization with other people. Instead, I hid out in my daily work with my patients to find meaning, but at the same time came up short and feeling myself sinking into the doldrums of real despair. In the meantime, several months prior to the election, my wife, Lori, with the camera, had joined CCL. As we entered into the new and very strange political arena, she too could not find her bearings. Unlike me, she looked to find places where she could take political action. At first, she tried to take part in too many causes to be effective. She lost focus. As a result, she decided to immerse herself in one area only, climate change. She knew that climate change affects all areas of suffering, including immigration, food insecurity, water degradation, health, poverty, and global wars. As a result, a typical day for her involved from 2 to 5 hours working on climate issues, in addition to her full-time job. This disrupted our daily routines. I resented this change in my life and was not on board. Fortunately, as time passed and I watched Lori, I saw her action transform her despair into meaning. With each success, large and small, I saw her mood become bright again. After some time, I decided I wanted some of the same for myself and gave my full and grateful support to her. It was a short time after my conversion that I was approached by one of the coordinators of this panel, Victoria Craig, to make this presentation, and I was pleased to do so. So yes, I'm on board, but I'm not naive. I'm informed enough to be aware that even if humankind would cut carbon levels to 0 parts per million tomorrow, there would still be marked destruction of our Mother Earth. Yes, Mother Earth, a mother of each and every one of us. Psychoanalysis has shown us that in early infancy, the child experiences her or himself as part of the mother, and from this union, the child slowly individuates, but never even adulthood, to the point of losing strong traces of this original union. Can we regard Mother Earth the same way, and in union with her, connect ourselves to all her cows, dogs, clouds, or patches of land? Why not? If our mother is attacked, how can we not at the same time fall into despair? Herz Espen-Stoknes addresses this despair with the following stance. You need to let the despair out unabashedly, but not accusingly. Listen to how it expresses itself in your heart and your mind by feeling fully immersed in it when it appears. Avoid the temptation of shifting into a sermonizing, moralizing, pontificating mode, and slowly stay faithful to the gray images of dissolution and destruction, understanding how they weigh heavily on your shoulders, heart, and feet. Allow the notion of I give up to flow through you, but don't identify with it. Maybe our anger needs to cry out without being impatiently and prematurely bullied into positive thinking and quick fixes. Yes, we must make haste slowly with this kind of deep questioning that allows our heart and soul time to follow. To allow our despair, paradoxically, to move us to thoughtful and deliberate action. When climate denial raises its head and we are faced with hell, we must tell stories of heaven and have the stories play out to all of humankind that longs for a healthy Mother Earth. This stance is not a forced optimism, but an existential expression of action in the face of a now perceived bleak future. If optimism and climate change look scientifically like a weak case, is then deep pessimism and hopelessness inescapable and inevitable? No, says Espen-Stoknes. There is a third way of measured hopelessness that is an active skepticism along the lines of, we're not sure of exactly where we're going, but we're going for it anyway. Our situation is desperate, but paradoxically at the same time hopeful. In this existential stance, we have what is referred to as grounded hope. It is grounded in our character and calling, not tied to an expected outcome. In his famed essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, the great existential philosopher Albert Camus sees Sisyphus, the man who keeps pushing the rock to the very top of the mountain, only to have it fall back down just as it reaches the mountain's crest, as a happy man. Why happy? Because he's doing the job he is given. He may forego the condemnation of the gods that he will never succeed and reject their meaning to create a meaning of his own. So go forward with stories, but be clear as we move ahead to know our work will go nowhere if we perceive, as we must all admit we have done, that the earth is here for our species alone. This very idea that humankind is superordinate to the other species and to nature itself is a failed idea, a folly, a very bad story. Going forward, we may and must tell the good news of the greening movement, but we must re-engage with nature, or perhaps engage for the first time with nature itself, to stand in the air, the living air, the intelligent air, as we breathe it in, as we too appreciate the intelligence of our goats, eagles, mountains, and trees. If for even a small part of each day we each partner with all of nature in this way, we will have brilliant stories to tell, both for our own sustenance and ability to carry on, and as examples to the rest of humankind that all is not lost and there is much to be gained.